Has Microsoft discovered a new state of matter? It's quantum to me. You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hey, everyone. Happy Monday to you. It's Alan Schimmel coming at you with a start of a great week of Techstrong Gang, and it can't get any greater than the lineup we've got for today. We're very excited. We're going to be discussing some really meaty, or maybe meaty and not meaty at the same time, type of topics. Let me introduce you to our gang members who are going to do the discussing today. First of all, joining us from out at sea, though I think he's actually anchored somewhere in the Keys right now. He is our resident security expert, hockey. Well, he's not really a hockey fan. He's married to a hockey fan. One and only Chris Blask. Hey, Chris, good to see you.
Good to see Alan, everybody. Yeah, so I'm for the Where's Waldo exercise of the day. If you look on Google Maps for Half Moon Key near Key West, you'll find a little channel in the northwest corner of it, and that's what you see out the back window.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, joining us from, looks like he's home, I guess, in Auburn. Hoping the NCAA basketball.
I just got my tickets last night, man.
Very cool.
We're going.
Well, you haven't been exactly a good look.
No, I agree. But that I can still 1 second. That was my son's argument of not getting the tickets. Is that will make him lose?
We're kind of like mush in the Bronx.
It doesn't really work that way.
But he is our AI, cloud, DevOps, just all around guy, John Willis. Hey, John, great to have you on. All righty. And then joining us, I would say she's home in New Mexico as well. She's the CEO.
I am now.
Yep, for a short time. But she's the CEO of Deploy Hub, open source aficionado. She's Tracy Reagan. Hey, Tracy, thanks for coming on. It's good to see you.
Hey, Alan, just great to be here, as always. I love this particular team, so this will be a fun day.
Good. I hope so. I think it will be. And then joining us from up in Harrison, New York, where it's cold. He's our Chief Content Officer from the Bronx, Mike Bizarre. Hey, Mike.
I'm well. How are you, sir? You're
good. I'm still in New York where it is cold.
You were actually by me, so there you go.
Yeah, but you know what? It's home, and it's good to be home. All right, so guys, let's jump right into it. You know, Microsoft made some big news. When I first read it, I was like, oh my God, they invented a new state of matter. It's not a liquid, it's not a solid, it's not a gas. Is it, faster than a speeding bullet?
Sure.
Well, who knows? But it's and they're making their own chip with it to, have potentially million qubit kind of quantum computing. I don't know. Is this tabletop fusion? I'm not quite sure. But Mike, why don't you kick it?
Well, they're calling these things topo conductors, and this first one is 8 qubits, but they think they'll be able to get up to millions of qubits eventually. It's not clear how they're going to manufacture these things at scale yet. But John, I know you've been following this, and I think they still haven't quite put this in. They're promising to describe this in an upcoming issue of Nature, I think. And so there's a lot of people who are skeptical going, well, is this real or not real? But John, you've been following quantum computing. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, I think I like to say you consider me like a sports journalist on this subject, right? I don't actually play the field, but I do have opinions and I do keep up on it as much as sort of any other interesting subject. And I'll go back to a little bit on when my oldest son was going into university about a year before. This is about probably 7 years ago. There's some think tanks I've been involved with where there are true experts on quantum computing. And every year I would go, the first year, it was about a year when my son was a senior. I was like, is this an area that he should get into? And almost all the experts said no. They said, this is, 15 years. This is 7 years ago. They were saying 15, 20 years out, right? And so, but I've kept my sort of eye on this thing, and being in a university town periodically, they have experts come in. I wind up catching the thing. So I've been following. What was interesting is, what last year Google sort of announced their breakthrough quantum moment, right? And how they were going to sort of change the game. And it got ridiculous amount of press, right? And it was overhyped because, the net, even today, most experts would tell you that, I think when we talk about what a fully fault tolerant universal quantum computer, that means the thing actually works. You can actually do real work on it without just losing the states and these, what they call qubits. And so most people would say, aggressive people, and even in the Microsoft announcement, they would say 2030 or later. Most would say 10 to 20 before we have a sort of a universal quantum machine that actually can do business work, right? Um, and then the interesting thing becomes, I mean, that idea of this, what they call topological qubits, or these, material science work that's basically going to give you more fault tolerant qubit states, right? The problem with these states is they can do massive amount of potential compute crunching, but today the ability to get the proper states, if you turn the thing off, recover, there's just so many operational issues with these things. Here's the net, right? Google talked about this announcement last year. Everybody went nuts. About a week later, people realized we're still 10 years out. If you compare sort of Google's announcement and Microsoft's announcement, Microsoft is really more theoretical. I mean, even Google, with their announcements last year on their quantum computing breakthroughs, we're still 10 years out, and they have examples. The report here is really just all theoretical. So the net is, this is all good, because the net is now the private sector is actually investing and taking this serious, where most of the sort of serious quantum computing was academia or CERN, areas like that. And then one last thing, unless anybody wants to go any deeper, which I don't really care to, but is that IBM has been doing this for 40 years. And they get no press, no big announcement. And in the last 10 years, they've been incredibly serious. In fact, if you listen to, as I do, some of these professors that are actually talking about real projects that are happening in research, they'll always point to the IBM Q experience and that stuff. So it's just ironic that, like we today, now we get this major, Microsoft's going to change everything. It's sort of a turf war of something that's 10 years out. And again, I think it's really interesting that IBM's been slow and steady, wins the race on this topic for 40 years, and certainly 10 years in modern quantum computing, the sort of qubit architectures. Yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
Tracy, I'd love to get your take on this, because when I look at this, I'm like, okay, well, that seems interesting, but where does the software for this thing come from, and what am I actually going to maybe program against?
Well, the first thing I thought when I saw it was like, oh no, it's closer than we thought. We better figure out how to do better algorithms and encryption, because the first thing it will be used for it will be for breaking encryption, no doubt. That's where my head went. But I also thought about a conversation that Alan and I had maybe in the fall, that we brought up quantum, and Alan was like, but it's 10, 15 years out. The thing about it is, time flies when you're having fun, and maybe we're 10 or 15 years out. And maybe what Microsoft is introducing is somewhat of a game changer, so that we can pursue it in a more aggressive way because it is more fault tolerant. I'm excited about it. Let's hope it is real. I know that there's debate if it's if it's hype for their 50th anniversary or 50th birthday, or if it's something that they've really delivered. I'm hoping it's the later, because it's time that we stop talking about AI. I want to talk about something else. Let's talk about quantum. It's a much more interesting topic.
Yeah.
And I want to learn more about qubits and what they're doing with this topological qubit.
Just to point out one last thing on there is, it is not a game changer at this point, right? It's not. It hasn't even been peer reviewed. The paper hasn't even been peer reviewed. So it's hype. It's promising. It's interesting. It's great that the private sector is investing money in this space more aggressively. Meaning IBM's been doing it forever, and now you've got Google and Microsoft. But at the end of the day, it won't deserve the hype that it's going to get.
But if we have hype, then and we have more investment, won't we get there faster, right? So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way.
I think the Chinese are going to beat us anyway. So
Fair point. I think you're probably right.
True patriot.
especially when you talk about encryption, right? So
Yes.
So here's the thing. I have a couple of thoughts on this. Number one is I think Mike Vizard and I had a conversation when we were in person this week. This ain't the first time Microsoft's made such an announcement, right? Microsoft claimed this, not Topographic Oceans, that's a Yes album. But what do they call the material? Topo something?
they call
Topological.
majority zero
conductors.
Yeah, but topological qubits.
Yeah, it's like top of the morning, but topo conductor.
Yeah. Well, they claimed to kind of invent this state of matter a few years ago, only to subsequently kind of withdraw the claim. Who knows? You know, I mean, I'm not saying they're lying or they're trying to grab some publicity, but who knows?
Both things can be true, though, right? Like they're providing research to Tracy's point, and that's a good thing. They're getting some, good mojo out of what they are and who they are.
Well, that's the whole purpose of quantum, right? Two things can be true at once.
Yeah. You know, anytime.
Right.
I'll give them extra credit on that.
That was good, Mike.
Jay, I feel very fusion energy about this, right? Will we get there? Yeah, for sure. I mean, almost certainly, on both, right? Exactly when, I don't know, right? And it's one of those things where the probabilities aren't much stronger 3 years from now than 30 years from now, right? And as we're talking about here, there's lots of signs that 3 years from now or 13 years from now is probably closer than 30 or 33. But for those of us who've been watching this and fusion energy for a long time, okay, I'll believe it when I see it.
You know what? Quite frankly, there were those people who were watching AI for a really long time and kept saying it'll be there, it'll get there one day, it'll get there. And then all of a sudden that day comes. And no matter how long you think it's going to get there, it kind of surprises you.
Oh, I have a book coming out that next month.
You have a book. Exactly.
about
That was your segue. That was
All
my
right.
that was my softball to you. But the other thing is, quite frankly, and maybe it's because I know so many people who are in the security world. The only thing I hear about what's quantum computing? How is it going to change the game? Oh, it's going to break encryption. It's going to break
Yes.
encryption.
Break encryption immediately.
But you know what? Yes, it may break encryption, though we now supposedly have quantum-proof algorithms we're going to use. But there's so much more that quantum computing might be able, in terms of climate calculations, nuclear reactions, protein folding, real earth-shattering kind of uses that this could shepherd a new era in.
If you don't scare easy, I wouldn't read this book if you're a paranoid person, but it's by one of the It's called The Coming Wave by I think it's Mo. I'm trying to Mo. Just The Coming Wave. I won't pronounce his last name. He does this. He breaks out what AI and quantum can do, and he was an ex big shot at Google, and it's a scary book. I mean, it is a really scary book about synthetic biology and yes, his main theme of that book, and I regret reading it. It was so scary. But his main theme is when you start moving AI and real quantum together, the positive and the negative effects are going to be eerie.
Well, on a positive note, we have a really cool new term, exotic quasi-particle. Oh, I want a T-shirt that just says exotic quasi-particles on it.
So yes, that's a great idea. I may do that. I'll send you one if I do it.
Okay.
I think
no,
Chris is a walking example of an exotic quasi-particle.
Oh, well, not to be too optimistic about it, but what is that Men in Black closing line? There's always a Vogon death fleet coming to destroy the world, right? We are living today and have all our lives with all these huge potential negative consequences. We agonize over them a lot. And to date, we have largely avoided them. What we're talking about here contains a whole bunch of new ones. Fantastic opportunities, protein folding. Oh my God. But huge risks. Oh yeah.
So, Chris, to that point, the security world talks about Q Day, right? It's some unknown day when these quantum machines are available and start destroying all these encryption algorithms. Is that a real fear, or is that something that, is out of the movie?
Well, the way you rate a bank vault or a safe is by time, right? How long will it take, the expected adversary to open? Not if, when, but just when, right? So anything you're encrypting ever, or that has ever been encrypted, will at some point be revealed. So when you're looking at securing data, you're saying, how long do I need this to? So yeah, as computing power cranks up, and I just, again, it's not just quantum, but quantum is one of those obvious things. When you just exponentially go up a couple of numbers, yeah, your old stuff is going to get read. So there you go.
All right. Start deleting those files now.
Yeah. Or start, well, in risk management, you have to assume if this is compromised, then what? So kind of as building that into your security thoughts, actually deal with the consequences, put all your controls in place, have an idea what to do if it's revealed, or if that's what we're talking about here, your encryption being broken, somebody reads data you don't want them to have. What do you do next? Maybe it's going to happen.
Well, and one last thing, Chris is a really good point, because I've always tried to explain that, not being a total expert in security or in quantum, but the thing that scared me the most, which was it will get broken. And so anything that's been out there is compromised at some point. And then, so your point, I've never had that follow-on answer, which is you really need to prepare for what to do when it does get compromised, because it will get data that it's not like you can just encrypt the data. That data is out there. It's, like somebody has it, like Hillary's emails, right? Like literally once the data was out there, it's out there. And
Well, yeah, and I think it gets to, the core philosophy about security. We accept all sorts of risks all the time. Our companies and ourselves will not last forever, right? Let's not over secure things. Let's secure the things that we need to the level they need to be secured. And the rest of it, and quite often when you think about what happens if this thing happens, you realize it's not that bad and is way more expensive and impeding to stop it. So, and maybe it doesn't happen. Move on.
My advice is don't let it take up space in your head. I read that from some crazy guy on Facebook.
You have enough to do already.
Uh-huh.
yeah.
All right. Let's take a break here on Techstrong Gang. We're going to come back in just a moment with more stuff. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
All right, we're back in, well, we did quantum, so we might as well move on to AI because, well, that's just the topic of the day. And it's interesting because Amazon is talking about a next generation Alexa device, which will be a lot more interactive thanks to AI. It's supposed to be out in the next couple of months or so. And full disclosure, we used to have Alexa in our house, and I just kind of got bored with it, and so did my wife, and just turned it off and forgot about it, and it just kind of went away, and I frankly not missing it. But Tracy, I don't know if you guys have Alexa, if you're still engaged with it, but do we need a more interactive flavor of Alexa to make it interesting again?
Well, I think in order for Alexa to remain relevant, we have to have a more engaging Alexa. That's an absolute truth. We do use Alexa, but Alexa, tell me what the weather's going to be in Las Vegas. Alexa, play Radio Paradise Mellow Mix on stereo. There are some things that I just tell her over and over and over, but I haven't ventured beyond that. And at this point, it's been 1.5 years, I believe, since we've had an upgrade. I think we've all established a relationship with Alexa, that may or may not change. I would hope that we could have a more engaging experience with Alexa, considering how far we've gone in AI. And I keep complaining about AI is great, but it's great for businesses. It's not so great for consumers. So can we now start delivering AI that has benefit to every person's home? You know, it'd be great to be able to say, if you're a parent and you've got you'd like to know how well your kid's doing in school, Alexa, can you give me the last grades my child just got in his last test? Wouldn't that be an interesting experience? But I think what we could have the potential of is to reimagine how we interact even with ChatGPT. So if we could just have a conversation instead of typing on our keyboard while we're sitting there cooking dinner, I think that changes the world for consumers. So yes, let's keep moving this product forward and let's get new habits, because it can do more than tell me what the weather is or turn on the stereo.
So I have some thoughts here. So first of all, it can give you your child's grades depending how old they are, because it's a privacy requirement. But that being said, I very much have a love-hate relationship with Alexa, right? I have Alexas throughout my house, and I'll say something like, Alexa, play music, while I'm in the shower and getting washed up. And it'll start playing music, or it'll say, oh, music is playing on another device. Would you like to play it here? And I say, yes, play it here. Music's playing on another device. Would you like the Amazon Family Music plan so you can play on more than one device? No, Alexa, play it here. Well, music's playing on another device. Well, switch to this device. If you don't give it its magic words, it's like I need a magic key and I forget the magic keys all the time. But I don't want to just bang on Alexa. I have the same problem with Siri. I had the same problem with Google Home. All of these things, these agents that were supposed to miraculously help us so much, have been somewhat disappointed. The tasks we use, I can't get my Alexa to play my Sonos, even though there's an integration. They've been somewhat disappointed in limiting. I do- let me hit this one last point, John. I do think that AI can make them better. I absolutely do. But Tracy, the problem you outlined to me is not an AI or intelligent agent problem. The problem is that we're still stuck in the 1970s Spark, whatever, out in Palo Alto lab of how we interface with our computer technology, which is still primarily mouse, windows, and keyboards. What happened to Scotty, in the Star Trek with the whales, where he says, hello, computer?
But Alan,
And
that's my
what?
point. My point. So the main point is, how did Apple and Amazon drop the ball here? Because I don't know if I don't use it for home use, but like I drive to Atlanta to the airport from Auburn, and it's a 90-minute drive, and I just have deep conversations with ChatGPT. And like, I mean, I'm literally like research level.
Fulfilling then,
Yeah,
John?
you're off the chart fulfilling. Yes. Again, you have to know how to talk to it. It's not the end all be all. It isn't going to drive my car. But
I'm married 35 years. I'm just figuring that out with
yeah,
Bond.
but I mean, like, I tell you what I'm not using in my sort of the things that really excite me, other than like Alexa at home, like what time is it? What's the weather? Or in Siri, give me directions. Or but what I'm really doing is I'm spending a lot more time thinking about research or things I'm writing or the books I'm working on. I'm not having those conversations with Siri, right? And at the core of all this too is, and it's a very simplistic, high level, is those products, Siri and Alexa, got stuck on NLP and sort of open AI and this sort of LLM transformer. They adhere to a transformer model, and the transformer, attention is all you need, changed everything. And I'll go back to, how did they miss this? Google wrote this paper, and like they missed the AI assistant window by moonshots. Right. So that's the thing that just like it perplexes me, is how they had all the ingredients, particularly Google, and literally are just like, it's comical, having a conversation.
I have some thoughts on that, why they missed it. I think that if I was Google, I would be looking at Alexa and trying to figure out how to build ads into it. And I don't think it works that well. I would be really annoyed if I was having a research conversation with ChatGPT. By the way, I call my best friend now because I'm using it so often to do research. But I never thought once to go and ask Alexa, hey, Alexa, I need to buy a new car. What's the best hybrid SUV on the market? Never once did I think to do that. And I don't believe that. And instead, I went to Google and looked at it, and I got a ton of ads. So I believe that Google doesn't want to disrupt their revenue model, and I could be completely off. But capitalism likes to capitalize on and reinvest things that make a profit. And does Alexa really make a profit? Does this kind of technology make a profit for them if we're taking out the ads? Which I would love that idea. And I think that's going to happen over time.
It goes back to, and I definitely want to hear your thoughts, Chris, but that goes back to like the Simon Sinek Start With Why, right? It's like missing, if you've read that book about how, the transformations, how these companies just completely missed whole waves. And I think in some ways, you're right. It is about their commercial vehicle, but then the driving mindset of innovation there wasn't focused on, AI assistants are probably going to be the next big thing. So anyway.
I just, I agree with absolutely everything you said. I'm going to take this approach. So bear me out. I love Alexa, right? It is, as you guys know, I have multiple built to these boats. I use them controlled. I've had them in homes from day one. I've been playing with them. And you're absolutely right. Number one, they totally suck. They're not very good. Not good at the job. And Tracy, totally right. Yeah, this is a money losing thing. I don't know, supposing Jeff Bezos or somebody in Amazon just decided to keep it going for the heck of it. I'm always concerned they're going to cancel it because it's so useless. However, right, it's like the first generation of hi-fi stereos, right? Honestly, to have a voice activated thing, for the casual stuff, to set the lighting in my room because it's evening and I just wanted to change the colors but on these boats, both of the pros and cons, it is such a low, but yet barely functional maturity level that if I enunciate clearly, it's very handy to control lights and pumps and, things that I use, navigating the boats when time is really precious, right? I just don't want to get up and hit the damn switch, or I just want to, things are going on in real time. So there's these wonderful advantages that you can see in this terrible package that, and as I've mentioned a number of times, compared to the ChatGPT and what we see out there, it's just this stunningly stupid product. You literally have to speak very clearly at, or it'll, do the wrong thing and blow up. But the fact that it exists and it actually manages to deliver some value at such a primitive level tells me that we have to be close. And I think the speaking to the world, if not Star Trek, maybe at least the Expanse level, it's not that far away. I think the next 5 and 10 years, the commercial drivers will wind up to, so the Amazon and the other providers will give us things we can, it's like you're saying, John, they're there right now if you know about it. So in 3, 5, 7 years, it's got to work its way into all this stuff.
I think this thing is going to be super annoying, and it's going to be in your face all the time going, can I help you with this? Can I do this? Can I, I see that you're doing this. Do you want me to do this, that, and the other, and all these other things is going to be helpful. And this will be the last thing I say on this whole thing, folks. And I'm going to help you right now because you all have Alexas that are probably lighting up like crazy as you listen to this. So Alexa, off.
What's
All right,
You're
right on this one. All right, let's take a break. We're going to come back for our last block for this beautiful Monday. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hey, folks, we're back and we're going to have a little chat about cybersecurity and how the cyber attacks are changing. Dark Trace has a report out, and there's an article on Security Boulevard that you can check out about this that says that, well, over half now of these cyber attacks can be traced back to the so-called cyber criminal as a service platforms. And these are basically automated systems that have been set up to help just about anybody launch a cyber attack these days. Chris, I think people still have it in their heads that cyber criminals are dudes in hoodies and basements and kind of leaning over keyboards, but it feels like the whole thing has got automated to the point now. Like, I look at these things and I go, my God, these people are using DevOps to attack us.
That's funny. There's nothing new in the world, basically, right? You know, I had the name just before this segment. I'm blanking on it right now with the Slick Willie. There was that famous thief, mid 1950s kind of thing, who was asked by the FBI, why do you always rob banks? And his answer was, because that's where the money is, right? And organized crime organizes around crime. You know, what the crime is doesn't really matter, right? You reach a level of repeatability, you know, like any sort of conflict, right? You're having a conflict with the policy structure, with the law. And you find gaps and you can exploit them individually, randomly, like you say, in a hoodie in early computer days. But it reaches the point where it's not about the computers anymore. It's about the money. And there are always organized crime organizations, you know, literally the mafia, you know, and versions of that, and nation state operations and rogue nation state operations and so forth that build up around them. So we're at this stage, which anybody involved in the early days of the internet, again, forecast, because at some point this security stuff gets serious, you know, and pretty well all of us, you know, on this call probably remember those days about 20, 30 years ago when you're saying to whomever, you know, DOD, military people or whatnot, at some point you're going to be able to turn off the grid remotely. You know, it seems like sci-fi. That's the world we're in right now. So we're in the world where you can make a lot of money with cybercrime. So all the traditional organized crime organizations are doing it. North Korea, for example.
So it's mobsters who code is what you're saying.
Well, they don't even code, right? They just hire coders. Yeah.
Well, so that at the nation state level, that's very true, and it is what it is. But I will also say that not all cybercrime is nation state related. There are huge criminal enterprises, and not only enterprises. What this report really focuses in on is that there's a criminal, we call it the dark web or what have you, an ecosystem. So what happens is, you know, you've got the developer class who come up with their app, right? And then they make that particular cybercrime as a service available to the ecosystem. At the high end of the ecosystem might be the nation state people or the, you know, the big fish who are going after big bucks and particular things. But when they're done with it, you know, then the hyenas, the jackals, and the vultures come in, and they all take their slice out of the carcass of the cybercrime victim, right? Some are looking for passwords, others are looking for HIPAA data, others are looking for financial information. So one particular SaaS, crime is what do they call it here? Cybercrime as a service kind of application services 5 or 6 different levels of this criminal, dark web ecosystem, and they all resell it too, right? I got, I took I skimmed the cream off the crop, but if anyone's interested in, 4 field data on 150,000 people, you could buy this file and have at it, right? And that data may be your address, phone number, and a password or something. So this is, but this is not new either. This has been going on a long time. The good news is, John, you made reference to Josh and CISA. You know what? Both at the government level, we're in the U.S., so we focus on the U.S., but not only the U.S., Europe, rest of the world, at the government level, as well as at the good guys, the white hat level. We've been fighting this scourge for years. The problem is, if it's not going to be a priority going forward, and if you look at recent actions about how they're just exposing confidential data as part of this Doge thing, I question what CISA is going to look like.
Well, here's why I'm scared to death, right? Well, I mean, there's three topics I think a lot about. Again, not being a cyber person, but thinking a lot about what AI. I mean, the first is everything old is new again. That means all these attacks, vectors, and things that just have been common that people like Chris and Tracy are experts on, now create a whole nother level with AI, because most of the AI infrastructure is just infrastructure. So they're building these things and they're not hardening them. They're being built. I've had this conversation many times on this show, right? About how new infrastructure is being built by chief AI officers. That's one level. I've discussed that. The second is the new infrastructure bugs. And I feel that not enough AI security experts are staying up to speed on what is happening with jailbreaks and all that. But the thing that keeps me up at night is about a year ago, I had a conversation with Josh Corman about cyber infrastructure. And he'll tell you stories about how easy it is to take out a city's water supply and how it may take 3 to 4 weeks to fix that water supply and how many people will die when that happens. And how, so I started following a bunch of newsletters on this. And like, if you've heard of Salt Typhoon and Vault Typhoon, right? These are real scary things. And here's the nexus of why I'm having trouble sleeping. And I want to hear Chris and Tracy's ideas on this. Is also in these same sources that I've been following in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I'm watching government agencies tell me how CISA and NIST and the people who are really been the stuff that was going on in CISA. Now, Josh worked there. I think they've been tracking things like Salt Typhoon and these real nation-state cyber groups that are literally looking to disrupt our telcos, our water supply, our electricity grids, and the people that were doing the most serious work, according to what I read and also what Josh has confirmed to me, are all getting axed right now. And so probably at the height, and then you take that DeepSeek moment 3 weeks ago, you throw that all together, and we are letting our guard down at a level. I feel, and I'm scared, that we're letting our guard down at the worst possible time to let our guard down.
I completely agree with that. I do. We are so letting our guard down. I mean, maybe we need to remind our government why we need to do this. And that article pointed out that one of the areas of their favorite attack are edge devices. Okay, let's think about our military. Our military in the field, boots on the ground. Everything is based on an edge device. Everything that we do, walkie-talkie, everything is an edge device in the field. They don't have a local, cloud that they're working from. So I really do have a belief that we a community believe that we have solved most of the problems with security. We have CaaS testing, we have DAS testing, we have PIN testing. But we don't do anything on edge devices, to be quite honest. We might do SaaS before we deliver anything embedded, but once it's out there and a vulnerability hits, it's hard to update those devices. So maybe we can ask our new government that, they created Space Force. Maybe it's time to create Cyber Force that's part of the DoD that can focus on this, because that's where we are most exposed when it comes to our military. We're talking satellites. We have satellites now that are software-driven satellites. They could take over those and make them crash into each other and destroy our entire GPS system. But I don't know if I know that there are really good people in the DoD that are thinking about this. But I do believe that NIST and CISA was who is really focused on it. And maybe we just have to shift where the focus is and make it a military issue, as opposed to a general cybersecurity issue for enterprises as well as government. So we have to set their hair on fire somehow in order to make this happen. And they're on jailbreaks. Okay, I've never thought about playing on any of these tools that I hear, but one came up last night that we discovered. Steve Taylor, I don't know how he found it, but he said, hey, there's a new jailbreak called Indiana Jones, and it will allow you to prompt, a LLM, take a ChatGPT, and it will help you prompt it so you can find all the back doors. Now, I wanted to go find it and start playing on it immediately. And that's terrible. That's a terrible thought that, somebody like myself in security wants to say, oh, I want to learn to do that. Let's see if we could get into a back door. So these cyber as a service tools are a real threat, and they're going to cause young people to want to play on them. And it's just going to create a whole new brand of cyber criminals that we don't even know we're doing it because it looked like a fun tool to play on, right? Indiana Jones. What better name for it?
So curiosity still kills that cat, right? Was that what you?
So let me first endorse the cyber force. I think that's actually literally correct. I think the DoD, a cyber force, military focus and structure and process would be a great idea. And look, this is a high consequence, high risk, high likelihood time. There's a lot of moving pieces, as has been said already in the last couple of minutes. I don't think there's a lot of fans of the policies being enacted on our behalf for the nation at the moment. There's a lot of risky moves, at the very least, if not stupid moves, increasing all the risk. But as we're talking about in the green room, right? So Tracy and John, we're all boaters, and so are you, Alan, right? And you're out on the water with your boat, and thing happens. Motor blows up. We all have pontoon boats, so you lose a pontoon, and that's nothing good about that. However, you're out on the water. What are you going to do? And having both lived through the time I have and worked in this industry through the time I have, I've been through a lot of similar eras, right? From the Cold War to now, right? This is, like I say, every individual, their history does not repeat, it rhymes. This situation rhymes with other stupid times you've been in. There's a lot of stupid stuff going on that has huge risk. However, right, there will be a morning after. Something will be here 30 years from now and 50 years from now. And a lot of these issues will have been solved by definition because they can't continue to go at this rate. We cannot continue to function without John Deere point, right? I've watched from zero the development of what we see called DHS and CISA and all these, federal government functions. It didn't used to exist. The risks were basically the same. The ability to exploit those risks wasn't so high. And now they're kind of going away, but not entirely. And Josh has amazing experience, huge respect. I'm the more optimistic of the two of us. I think things will continue to happen inside the Beltway that aren't completely stupid. And there's certain momentum going forward.
I want to, if you finish, but I want to point out that he is more aligned with what you're saying, and actually made me feel better. In fact, one response very similar to the response. Just play with him as he's actually, I'm more pessimistic than he is, and he sounded more like you. But anyway.
Well, 2019, 2020, when I first, took a really hard look at the presidential orders about supply chain across the Obama, Trump, Biden, Trump, and now Trump administrations, they all, with very different ideologies and approaches, they actually form a very coherent line because the, different reasons for doing similar things. But when you turn to people who do this stuff for a living and say, what can we do in supply chain for whether to secure it or punish some other country, here are your options, right? And that institutional memory and momentum, moves forward even in times of chaos.
All right. Keeping with that boating metaphor, I am reminded, however, and maybe I'm showing my age here, of the Poseidon Adventure. And the theme song for the Poseidon Adventure was a song called The Morning After.
The ship sink. Yes, that also happens. Yes.
And sometimes the ship does sink. And as a result, we learn to build better ships or iceberg detection. But in any event, guys, we're about out of time. What a great way to kick off our week here on Techstrong Gang. We've got a full day of Techstrong TV following this, so don't go anywhere if you're watching this as part of the Techstrong TV stream. We're going to be doing some interesting things with Techstrong Gang coming up. and we'll get back to that. But until then, John, Chris, Tracy, Mike, thanks for joining in. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more. You've just watched Techstrong Gang. We're out of here.